Hey guys, Nick here. Just heads up, there's some mature language in this episode. Wanted to give you a fair warning. All right, let's get to it. Hey, welcome to Minor Details. I'm Nick.
I'm James.
And I'm Joey.
And we are three industrial designers across the country.
Sweating the small stuff.
And we have Joey Zeledón back again.
Part two.
Part two. If you haven't listened to part one, go back, listen to last week's episode. Joey Zeledón is an amazing designer with a very expansive career and awards and features. Last week we talked about his career working in shoe design and then into his consulting career at Continuum, and then his little hiatus at Costa Rica.
At Costa Rica?
At Costa Rica.
That's the Instagram handle.
In Costa Rica, sorry guys. But yes, thank you for tuning in, and thank you, Joey, for being on the podcast. But yeah, we just want to pick up where we left off, and you have been teaching in Costa Rica, picking avocados off trees, eating pineapples, and yeah, tell us how you got back into the design industry.
Yeah,
after your little hiatus.
So I put my portfolio back together, sweated over the small stuff,
Nice.
and and sent my PDF to a few companies. I was in touch with Smart Design, obviously, Zeba, and Nike at the time. Those are the three that I was targeting.
Yeah.
And that I got some response from, and had at least one or two Skype interviews across all three. But the one that that went further was with Smart Design. And I got a job with Smart and moved to New York City. So I went from Costa Rica to New York City, which is a huge contrast.
Yeah, that's night and
of
day.
life. Yeah. So.
Well, tell us a little bit about your time at Smart Design. How long were you there? And
Well, I want to know how they responded to your hiatus, because I think a lot of people are, we might have said this in the last podcast, but a lot of people are kind of wary of taking any time off, because
right.
they think that's going to be, that's going to put their career in the grave,
Yeah, they were really receptive to it, more or less. I mean, at least Smart Design was, because that's the job I got. But no, I think the way, it's all how you position it, right? Like anything. And I made it clear that this was something that was really important to me. I had purpose doing it. I made it very clear, like the value that I got from that experience, and how it shaped me as a designer, but also as a human being.
Yeah.
I kind of feel like it's almost more valuable than having like this very like rigid career structure. It's almost like, hey, like I was more self-aware of myself to be able to take a break and reflect on my career and really, distill the things I've learned in my past career, instead of being like, yeah, I've worked at this place, hire me,
Yeah.
I don't know, it's interesting.
Yeah.
Yes.
And so how long, I mean, do you feel like you hit the ground running at Smart, or do you think there was any adjustment period from the time of Costa Rica?
There was definitely an adjustment period.
You like set up a hammock.
Oh my god! I remember like when I the hammock. Yeah, I tried, but David slapped me in the face.
No, slacklining. This is terrible. I feel like I'm stereotyping Costa Rica.
Oh my god! No, it's cool. That's mainly for the expats. Everyone else is working hard. I actually, when I started at Smart, my mentor at the time, Yurin Bikari, who is now a lead designer at Samsung.
Wow.
Him and the lead senior engineer, I'm failing on his name, apologies for that. But they were like, I don't know, the inside joke was they kept calling me like by my first name, obviously, but like in a very like New York style, like, hey, Joey.
Joey.
Hey,
come over here.
Yeah. Hey, Joey, where's the pizza?
Classic New York, for sure.
Oh my god! And this guy, like Jörn, he's like half Italian, half German, so it's like it didn't really make sense, but but it did.
So it was just some like light hazing, like welcome back to New York.
Exactly, it was light hazing, and it helped adjust me to my new environment. Yeah, great guy.
Yeah. So what kind of projects? I mean, I know Smart for most of their work with OXO.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, tell us about the type of work that you got into there. And
yeah, so I worked on a number of OXO projects, as most of the designers do who go through the Smart Design system.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's great. I mean, OXO is in the same building as Smart and Star at Lehigh in Chelsea, the Chelsea neighborhood. And that, in a way, it's really kind of rare in that, the relationship between Smart and OXO, like OXO is what helped Smart get off the ground. It was like one of their first clients. And in a way, working for them through Smart is like we were in their in-house design team.
Right.
Which made it really cool.
Yeah.
So it's basically this mix at Smart of working on OXO projects, as an in-house designer for OXO.
Yeah.
But also working on client work, other client work, with maybe more of a strategic lens, right? Because with OXO, it's like, it was a little bit more narrow in scope.
Right.
Not everything, but a lot of the projects, right? You're working on a redesign for a salad spinner or a whatever, a new pizza cutter, right? Because it's very targeted, which is great for keeping your blades sharp as an industrial designer and keeping your tools sharp.
Yeah.
And then the other projects go a lot deeper, right, into the strategy and the research.
Right.
That's interesting. Yeah, I mean, we talked last episode. I'm a big fan of the OXO mixer that you did, the handheld mixer. Amazing design. But I am kind of curious, this strategy aspect, like, what did you get out of that? Can you tell an example of some project that you did that you were more designing the strategy behind as opposed to the design?
So that one actually was unique for OXO. That one was much more strategy intensive because
so the mixer was strategy intensive.
Yeah, that whole line, because it was like like a new what do you call it? I mean,
new category.
A new category. Thank you.
Right.
Yeah.
And so because of that, it called for a much deeper research phase.
Okay.
And I think a big part of what inspired that mixer and the headlight was, talking to real people, and in particular talking to extreme users. And extreme users, that's a term that I think it's an industry term now, but like Smart Design has been designing for extreme users for,
right? Because you have the classic story that everyone knows of the apple peeler and the extreme user of the grandmother, who wanted to be able to use the apple peeler, so they just stuck a mountain bike handle onto the apple peeler handle, had the grip.
Yeah. That's where the extreme user comes from.
Yes.
X Games terminology.
X Games grandmother.
I mean, extreme can mean a lot of things, right? Extreme can mean, lack of ability or hyper ability, right? And actually, the more recent work that I worked on, partly for Gatorade, is on the other side of the spectrum, which is also an extreme user, designing for elite athletes.
Yeah.
And so, it's the same formula, right?
Am I missing it?
I think.
No, that's not it. Nick, do you even know Joey Zeledón's work?
I think you got to go to the website to see.
You fool!
Tell me a little bit about the Gatorade story, because I believe it's some sort of pod that you squeeze. Am I correct?
That's right.
Okay.
The Gatorade portion, I helped design it, but it was a huge team.
Right.
So I can't claim. Like,
I actually feel like, I've been to Smart Design a couple times. I feel like their Gatorade thing is always on display, and they're always showing it off. And so So the project is, you have a bottle, a special Gatorade bottle designed for athletes, and then you have maybe some sort of Gatorade pouch that you can squeeze into just plain water. Is that
so? It's like a little plastic pod that you pierce, by hand on the piercer. That's
it's almost like a Keurig, Gatorade Keurig. Is that
is
that too much? Is that too much?
No. For lack of a better
explanation,
sure. Yeah. For everyone else, that it's basically what it is. And the big difference though is that this isn't a countertop product, right? This is something on the go, and not only on the go, but like seriously on the go. Right, when this is something where they come, on the sideline, they need their drink, their trainer throws them the bottle, and they're like squeezing it through their helmets.
Would this be this is
it's messy.
This is a professional product. This isn't a consumer level, or could a consumer?
Oh no, it's both. It's both.
Okay,
it's both, and that was part of their business strategy, right? You start with the professional,
right?
Again, and this comes back to the extreme user, right? You design it for the person with arthritis, and then you scale it to be for everyone. And
just
that's
to be clear, the football players don't have arthritis.
Right. Sorry, I was referencing. Yeah, exactly. And so this started as they started piloting this with college teams, right? Division I sports teams, football, basketball. Yeah. And then eventually, actually, they also piloted it with soccer teams, like professional. The Brazilian team is one of the first that used it, and now I believe it's available to everyone.
What's the name of the product?
It's Gatorade GX is the platform.
So I was reading your Core Saving 7 interview with the Touchy Feely, and you kind of talked about how these pods are almost similar to how you would squeeze like a lemon or a lime into a Gatorade.
Yeah, so that was referencing the Drinkfinity part of this.
Okay.
So Drinkfinity came before this, and I was the lead designer on that iteration.
Okay, so there was a company that was more of a separate technology, this whole pod technology called Drinkfinity.
Right, and it's the umbrella for all of this is PepsiCo.
Okay, I got it.
Gatorade is one brand of Pepsi. Drinkfinity is another, and Drinkfinity is a startup within Pepsi.
Interesting.
Yeah. So this project came before Gatorade, and they basically saw an opportunity to take this technology and pivot it to for elite athletes.
Okay.
Wow.
So Drinkfinity was designed for more of an on-the-go lifestyle, like millennials, right, that want to be hydrated and don't want to drink soda and sugary drinks.
Yeah, and similar thing, you have this water bottle that has these pods specifically designed to squeeze into the water.
Yeah, it's the same architecture, more or less same experience. And yeah, so from that interview with Core 77, I was referencing this experience design, which actually comes back to my Costa Rica days. This was my grandfather has this a super old school fruit juicer.
Okay.
Where it's like this lever, and you put on his farm.
It's like some sort of big metal contraption.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. It's all analog, and you plop in there like an orange or a lemon, whatever, lime, and you squeeze it like any classic juicer, and get your drink. It's similar to that juicer that Yves Bahar designed. What's it called?
Juicero.
No, I'm just kidding. Sorry, that was my
definitely not similar, but yeah, good joke.
Sorry, that was like my way of whatever. Anyways, that was like me talking shit. It's like non-existent.
Right.
So anyways, that whole experience, I was trying to bring that to this product.
Yeah.
Right. Which is similar, similar experience.
Right.
You put this pod on there as if it was a piece of fruit. Obviously, we know it's not. And you use the hinged lid to squeeze it into,
that's really cool.
into the water.
I love how that like Costa Rica influence came out.
Could we talk about touchy feeling? Could we make a segue here?
Yeah,
because
sure.
I feel like,
I
is
think
that
that's good.
something that you began at Smart Design?
No, actually, I started at Continuum.
Really?
Yeah. The inception of that idea came from a project I worked on, a super intense strategy project for a humongous consumer packaged goods company who tasked us with designing a new kitchen cleaning product for emerging markets.
Mm-hmm.
And in particular, it was for the Chinese market. Or it started with Brazil and China, and then we narrowed down to China.
Yeah.
And and from our, part of our research, we went to people's homes in those countries and interviewed them with interpreters, of course, to understand like the opportunity, the pain points, ways that we can surprise and delight the consumers. And one of the big learnings or insights that came from that research was that the Chinese consumer was actually more fearful of the chemicals in the cleaner than they were of what they were cleaning.
Oh,
interesting.
Yeah.
Huh.
And I think that was a thing at the time where it was like there was like some sickness or some kind of backlash against these cleaners.
Oh.
And so we realized like we needed to design a feeling, that this solution needed to emit a feeling or evoke a feeling of trust and natural, right? And so from there began the ideation process, which was my, that's where I wasn't the cameraman anymore, in the in-home interviews, the strategists were doing the research and I was observing, but then, I took it from there and started ideating on this feeling. Like, how do you capture a feeling?
Right.
And beginning with a feeling. You don't begin with anything physical. It's like this, I don't know, something that you can't actually touch.
Yeah, it's like, you don't start with the sketching a toaster, you start with spreading butter on toast.
Right. Exactly.
That's the feeling.
Yeah. Or that's a ritual that might, lead to a feeling.
Right.
And that's what makes it so difficult but also interesting. And so if the feeling in this case was that we needed to embody, right, in some physical form was trust and natural. I was thinking, what better place to look than in the same context that they were cleaning, but the kitchen, right? So people prepare food, eat food. There's so much trust there, right?
Right.
To put things in your body, and then the cleaning that happens afterwards. From light cleaning, doing dishes, to like scrubbing the stove and all the like heavy grease. And so I started looking at all the rituals around food preparation, right? Like, grinding pepper or chopping vegetables, the questions that I was asking myself, like, how can we leverage this, right?
Yeah.
Could this instill more trust in this new cleaning solution?
And you weren't just necessarily thinking these things, you were also sketching these things out.
That's right.
You're sketching the hands,
Mm-hmm.
grinding the pepper, and you're sketching, the peeling the apple and things like that. And so this has evolved into this collection of sketches that you have about all these feelings. And
yeah, so that was the start of it, and I realized, oh my God, like I could do this on every project, right?
Right.
And I began, I started creating this library of touchies, if you will, of like, these hands interacting with the world around them.
Yeah, and they're really beautiful. It's just simple, like line work. You have these like simple gray hands, and then touching these yellow, highlighted objects, whether that's a light switch or or a subway pole like we have pulled up right here.
Yeah. It almost makes me think, and maybe this is off base, and you'll have to tell me if it is, but it's like, sort of these common everyday interactions that we might completely take for granted, but there's so much in it. It's kind of just like meditating on a paperclip. It's like, this design that's just so ubiquitous that you don't even really think about it in your daily life. But if you were to like sit there and think about how genius it is, or just like all of the implications around it, that there is something to gain from that. That there is something to gain by these actions that we're all accustomed to, we're all used to.
Yeah, I mean, so I've been following your work, Joey, for a long time, and so these touchy-feely sketches you've been posting, and then you made a book about them.
Yeah.
And kickstarted the book, and I have the book right here, and I didn't quite understand the entire idea until I actually felt the book physically and started like flipping through, and it did make that connection of like, oh wait, it is these interactions of like, taking the seatbelt and like putting it into the seatbelt holder or whatever it's called.
Buckle.
Seatbelt holder. But it just it highlights the fact that like every single interaction is important, and that buckle does need to feel safe. It needs to click in, and you have to feel confident about that feeling. I don't know. It was definitely kind of like a light bulb moment when I started looking at this book that you've created.
Thank you. I'm really glad to hear that. And actually, I think you got the point of it, right? It's about the context of these artifacts, where they live. I mean, I always think about design as like theater, right?
Yeah.
We have a stage, which is the context, the scene, the setting. Users, all of us, the people who use the products, they're the cast, and actually designers are the crew, right? We're in the back scenes, hunched over our desks and like thinking about like
wearing all black.
yeah.
We are like the stage people.
Yeah. And we're creating the props that then are used in the scenes. But when you watch theater, like it's never the props that are the highlight of the story. It's really the character development that matters most. It's like where the emotions are.
Right. Yeah. But also if there's a prop that seems dramatically out of place, then there's nothing else that you can focus on other than that thing that feels so out of place.
That's right.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's why like, the best designers, like, Dieter Rams, his principle of like the best design is no design, or like one that's you don't see, right?
Right.
I mean, that's speaking to, in my opinion, it in the theater setting, right? Where it's doing its job diligently without calling attention to itself.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, definitely check out Joey's book, Touchy Feely.
Yeah. I'm curious if now that you have a physical book, if you ever go and use it as your own reference.
Is there a sketch of the actual Touchy Feely book and hands touching the Touchy Feely book?
No, there isn't.
That'd be so meta.
That would be meta. Yeah, I should have.
Damn it. But yeah, no. Do you kind of use it as a reference?
I do. Yeah, I do. And although I will say, like, I use more of the methodology as a reference. I think
creating new imagery.
Yeah, like I slaved over this book so much that the side of it like gives me nightmares. Just kidding, but you know what I mean, right?
Yeah.
Like it's for everyone else to look at.
I just want to know when Smelly Heary is coming out.
Smelly Heary. Oh dear, James. I'm sure you've been thinking about that joke for like
just
the past.
happened.
Oh
just happened.
Oh my God.
But it is, just to elaborate a little bit more on the methodology. I mean, it really does bring to light, the importance of understanding not just the singular person using the product, but everyone else too, right? Because just like in theater, you have, a lead role, you have a supporting role,
right?
And you have like the what do you call them? the people that are the extras.
Yeah.
And that prop affects everyone to differing levels, right?
Right. So your stakeholders and
Exactly.
Interesting. Your extreme users, your stakeholders. Yeah.
That's really cool.
That's really
That's
cool.
a good analogy.
So how you sell that to a client, I know that's a different story. But
Did you present this kind of stuff to clients? Was that a part of your process, or was that more for the team or for yourself?
it was more internal.
Yeah.
Yeah, it wasn't. I think it was a little bit too conceptual for the client.
Right.
But I want to change that. That's something. This methodology is something I want to, carry forward much more into my own studio.
Right.
Well, this was started at Continuum, and then you recently put this book out. But I don't know, was there any other in between stages there? I mean, you were at Smart Design.
Mm-hmm.
What about any findings at Smart Design, or how did you transition to the next step in your career?
Yeah, so I was at Smart Design for 4 years, same amount of time as Continuum.
Yeah.
I don't know, I'm a 4-year guy. I don't know what it is. No, I actually worked with briefly a client at Smart who I hit it off with, and he ended up getting a design director role at Steelcase. And we got in touch, and the rest is history. So I basically went from Smart Design to Steelcase, moved from New York City to the Midwest, to West Michigan.
Yeah.
Oh, how was that? I don't know.
It was interesting. I mean,
Yeah.
it was. I mean, it was really beautiful in its own way. Like kind of an underdog city that has a lot going for it.
Where's Steelcase located? What city?
It's Grand Rapids, Michigan.
Grand Rapids. Okay.
And it's actually its moniker is Furniture City, because Grand Rapids and the surrounding area actually is where the big three, they call them, are based. So you have Steelcase, Herman Miller, and oh my God, who is the third one?
I don't know.
God forgive me. What the hell?
We'll ask him.
Oh my God.
Well, it'll come up.
The big three, we got
The
it.
third
other
one.
one.
Another furniture.
Yeah.
And Nike.
Hey,
I don't know.
I'm the other guy on this podcast, so I know what.
Hayworth. There it is.
Hayworth.
That's my
There
mind
we go.
going again.
Yeah.
So
I remember Joey having a conversation with you, and obviously off the pod, but I think if I remember correctly, you were talking about this idea of moving from New York to Grand Rapids was like when Bruce Springsteen moved out to, was it Nebraska or something, and wrote this this great album, sort of stripped back, and so was that something that you had in mind when you were like, I'm going to go to Steelcase, I'm going to remove myself from all of these distractions of New York City and the hustle here, and really get to focus in on something singular?
Yeah.
Yeah, except it wasn't Bruce Springsteen.
Oh, no.
It wasn't. It was Bob Dylan, who's I was
Dylan.
referencing. But
gosh.
it's
Yeah.
close enough.
Same thing, right?
There is a Bruce Springsteen album, I think, called Nebraska, where he went out there. Anyway, forget it.
Yeah, I think I saw it that way.
Yeah.
I think so.
Did you feel more focused?
Yeah, in a different kind of way.
Okay.
I had more time. Being an in-house designer, it was a slower pace, so I was able to write a book. That's where that came together.
Yeah.
I see.
I had all of the assets for this.
Yeah.
I just didn't have the time when I was here to put it together.
Right.
And it wasn't until I moved there that I was 9 to 5 most days, get home and
Yeah.
toil away on this thing.
I totally feel that. I mean, I did the opposite move. I had the 9 to 5 in Texas where I could do whatever I wanted after 5, and then I'm in New York, just 100% all the time.
Grinding it out.
Mm-hmm. So what was that? I mean, you had worked in that sort of corporate Clark setting where you're focused on one product, and then you went to consultancy. So what did you take from those many years in consultancy then back to corporate?
That's a great question. Yeah, I was, I going into it, I thought that I was like consulting for. I was in this mindset of like, oh, I'm still a consultant, like even though they hired me, but I quickly realized, like, you fool, like, they own you. Oh my God,
They own you.
and you have to adjust accordingly. Like,
Right.
I tried to. I think there was a lot of value I could bring as a consultant to the organization and my way of thinking, and they really value that thinking, because actually Steelcase was owned by IDEO for a number of years.
Oh, wow.
And
I did not know
they have
that.
a deep partnership.
Wow.
Yeah.
And so they're very much aware of design thinking and like research and working with a consultant. However, as a singular entity who goes in as a full-time designer there, it's a lot harder, obviously.
Yeah.
Right.
As a principal there, which has some level of authority, but not definitely not enough to change the way things run there, or it was more of me kind of repositioning myself and adjusting my flow to the organization. It's a huge company, and
Yeah.
and that's the way it should be, but not losing sight of the unique value and perspective I can offer. And so I was at Steelcase for how long? 2.5 years? Yeah, 2.5 years.
Yeah.
And it's an amazing company. Like the resources, the facilities, the workshops, or the workshop that they have, the design studio is immense. I mean, it's just like hidden in West Michigan, like this beautiful haven for designers. I mean,
It is interesting.
It
Isn't
really is. I mean,
It's
the
like
kind of work that comes out of that place is incredible.
some sort of oasis in the
Yeah.
Midwest.
It really is.
So, yeah, maybe speak to one of these projects here. James has pulled up the Embold collection.
Yeah, so I worked on this with the guy who hired me, Director of Design Ryan Ramos, as well as James Buchema, Senior Designer. And we were the design team for the healthcare division
Oh,
there.
okay.
And so what this line of seating is for clinics, and we designed it to be inclusive of all people, right? So again, like actually this is where my time at Smart really came into play, where it was designing for extreme users.
Right.
Because and actually the research phase of this was huge. We visited like hospitals and clinics across the country, one in Nebraska.
Oh, was Bruce Springsteen checked in?
I missed him.
No.
I missed him. Yeah, unfortunately. But this is where, like, and actually the healthcare side of things there is really interesting work. I mean, there's so much opportunity, not just at Steelcase, but in the industry in general, like designing for people who are really in need. It's not as glamorous,
Yeah.
as designing the next, sweet, task chair or whatever.
Well, I gotta say, like, this waiting room furniture is the best waiting room furniture I've ever seen.
Right.
Well, that's what we want to hear.
Yeah.
Because that was one of our like goals for
Right.
this project.
Yeah. So what did those extreme users look like? I mean,
There's some that are really big,
yeah.
some that were very small, frail,
Yeah.
not much strength and mobility.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So how did you cater this design towards them, other than maybe just like, dimensionally?
Yeah, so dimensionally is huge, as well as how much weight this can support.
Structurally.
Mm-hmm.
It's like this actually. This needed to pass, and I hope I get this right, a static weight load of 500 pounds and a dynamic of 300.
Wow.
I might be getting that a little off, but point is like this needs to hold like a significant amount of weight.
Yeah.
And I have some fun images of this like collapsed, or just like too much.
Interesting.
Yeah,
So
it was-
I guess you guys tested it, right? You put a ton of weight on it.
Yeah, the engineers did the tests.
Right.
And I see this detail being sketched out of the arm of the chair. And why was that a significant feature to this?
Yeah, so this is very OXO Good Grips coming through here. The armrest is the very first touch point of this experience for the user, the person.
Right.
And so in a lot of the research, we found that like that's where our extreme users would kind of orient themselves. That would be the first touch point.
Right.
They would put their hand on whatever, if they're right, you're lefty,
right.
Whatever side, and then they would do this kind of interesting dance where this is where they would hold on and they would kind of do this like shuffle with their feet and do, turn around,
right,
and then blindly find the other one with their other hand.
Yeah.
And imagine like someone who isn't able-bodied, like they're like,
right.
I mean, if a fall there is a big deal, right?
Yeah.
And so we wanted to make that as easily grabbable as possible, not just physically but also visually.
Right.
Because, sight is just as important to be able to see where to put your hand.
Yeah.
Right. It's almost, it even harkens back to the touchy-feely stuff again,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
It's very, if you're just listening, it's a very wing-like, I would say, arm to the chair.
Certainly a lot of affordance to the armrest.
Yeah.
To be able to grab onto.
And actually, so that's for getting into the chair, and then getting out. We like the armrest protrudes past the vertical of the legs, so that way the the person sitting in it can get this pommel grip.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
And so that helps them be able to get more surface area and force to lift themselves up.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah, I mean, I love hearing this story just because, I think a lot of times as designers we look at designs and we're like, oh yeah, look at that sexy chair, right?
Yeah.
And I was just in Italy last month, but there's plenty of beautiful chairs out there. But I think chairs like this do actually help people in need, and it's also well thought through. And I don't know, I just want to highlight that fact that you have thought about all these details, and you've thought about the user, and you've thought about the context.
But the other thing that I love about this chair is that it doesn't stigmatize that extreme user.
Yeah.
So every one of those features that you're talking about is built in such a way that it's not like, hey, I'm a feature.
Right. It's not a hospital chair for sure.
Right.
It looks, I'd put it in my house.
Yeah.
And actually, to that point, the other thing we considered was creating a parametric capability for it. So if you imagine like cutting the singular chair in half and then putting this long spacer.
Yeah.
So I see. You have some more benches and
exactly.
And couch
so that can be offered in a multitude of widths,
cool.
depending on the layout of the clinic.
Right.
And also one of the things I'm most proud of on this is this modular armrest within those wider seats, because the the facility managers who like designate this space and create the plans of where everything's situated in the waiting rooms, they can actually unhook the armrest and reposition it and add in more if need be. And the reason why that's important is because in healthcare, the demographic is constantly changing. So bariatric, geriatric patients, that population, particularly bariatric, is always on the rise usually in this country.
Yeah.
And so that creates, a different kind of need for certain spatial awareness, right?
So you're saying you can attach multiple armrests to the longer bench style seating?
Yeah, you can throw in as many as you want, depending on who you want the seat designated for.
Yeah,
that's cool.
So it's like riding the subway, right, where you have or park benches or whatever, but you're able to reposition those support units.
Cool. I'm also noticing a little Easter egg in here that is the oh gosh, let me go back. Go forward. The Ricky Biddle steel case chair.
Yeah,
I
Ricky.
recognize that.
Oh my god,
Ricky. But anyway, I had to shout that out
No,
because
that's
I
good.
saw that in the background there.
great guy.
But what a great project, and was recognized, got awards.
Yeah.
You know, so and are there any other projects that you did at Steelcase that have yet to emerge?
I worked, not yet. I'm hoping something.
Okay.
The
Yeah.
big one that I worked on comes out.
The big one.
Yeah, I can't say anything, but
It's huge.
I'm excited.
I mean, that was the reason. That was the thing that like kept me going. You know,
Mhm.
it kept really. I wanted to see that thing through. So
Right.
hopefully,
Yeah.
one day.
Well, Joey, you also have this design director at Mothership. I don't know if
Mhm.
you want to touch on that a little bit.
Yeah.
Is that something you were doing while at Steelcase?
Yeah.
And just kind of explain what this is.
So my partner, Martel Esposito, basically created this startup for parents called Mothership, and it's this digital platform that we're hoping to create that offers more resources and information about healthcare for parents that's much more personalized and tries to essentially bridge the gap between parents. Bridges the gap between mom friend and physician, right? Or a parent friend, right? The one you go to for advice
Right.
as a new parent,
Yeah.
because they went through it too, right?
Yeah.
It's this like personable appeal, and you really trust them. Whereas the physician represents, expertise.
Right.
They know health, but we found, and Martel found through her research, because this is the field that she works in, health and wellness and nutrition, that there's an opportunity, or there's this gap, if you will, of having a physician, an expert, who is also trustworthy, who also has a more personable approach to health.
Yeah.
And so we're trying to bridge that gap.
Cool.
And so my role in this was in my free time, and as a design advisor, helping to create the brand.
I see. Okay.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Well, I know you're not at Steelcase anymore. I don't know how much you want to speak to what your current status is as a designer.
The big reveal.
The big reveal.
Oh man.
I mean, I know that you've just rebranded your your personal brand. You have a new website, Joey Zeledón Studio. Going to take on some personal projects and client projects, I'm sure. But can you talk to that?
Yeah. All right. Let's do the reveal.
The reveal.
So
We have the confetti ready.
So yeah, I launched my my studio, and this is something that I'm going to be working on with other things, on the side, like a lot of us do, right?
Yeah. I mean, it's very hard to just go out there and be like, "Hey, I'm a consultancy now."
Yeah, exactly.
There's obviously
Exactly.
other projects you're working on.
So I'm going to be doing that. For the last few months, while I've been in between jobs, I've been building my website, and creating my studio and my plan moving forward. But I'm actually moving to Barcelona.
What?
In Spain.
Barcelona?
Because I got a job with HP
Yeah.
as a lead experience designer. So I'm going to be joining their design team there. And it's actually a group of great people, a few of which are former Smart Design
Okay.
designers.
Okay.
That's amazing.
Congrats.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
We're putting confetti over the YouTube video.
I will. Yeah. Post.
So I have not moved there yet, but I'm moving May 1st.
Yeah.
Oh, that's
And,
pretty soon. Yeah, this will be
if all
released.
goes according to plan.
This will be released like pretty close to that. Probably.
Yeah. Probably.
Oh, nice.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and I have my application for Joey Zeledón Studio. Should I give it to you directly, or should I put it in the mail? Or
We'll be in touch.
okay, all right.
Doesn't sound good.
You blew it, James.
Yeah, I think I mean, I appreciate you telling that your story, and obviously if you guys haven't caught up on the last episode, go back listen. I think maybe should we go into a topic or questions? What do you think, James?
I think we should go into a topic,
okay,
because there's something. This goes all the way back to square one. We were standing around talking. We were talking about the podcast.
I think this is when we first met. We met at Square One this past year.
Yeah.
Correct.
Was it 2008?
Yeah. 2018?
I believe that's when I might have seen you at 2017. Were you at 2017?
Yeah, it was.
I don't know if we were actually talking then, but definitely 2018, James and I were there doing talks and things, and we all were hanging out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was the first time that I had met you. Even though I think like I saw that your work, and I saw that you were in New York when I was in New York, and I was like, I gotta meet this guy, and just never did anything about it. But anyway, regrets aside, I think we were talking about design research. We were standing around and we were kind of like talking about, we were just kind of, doing what designers do. And, you introduce yourselves to each other, you talk about what you like about design, and then you start talking about that thing that's in the back of your head that you just
that's
need
nagging you.
Yeah.
Totally.
And for you, and I don't know if it still is, there was this thing that you were talking to me about design research and design researchers and that whole area. And so what's that all about?
Yeah, I remember that discussion. I was a few drinks in. So it was getting a little sloppy, I'm sure. So hopefully I can clean it up here. I just think that, to me, from my experience, the divide between research and design is like is where it's at. That's where the magic can happen. Most times doesn't happen. Yeah. And it's also the most difficult and challenging, right? And I think, and from my experience, actually, I remember like people I've worked with and mentors I've had always said the best designers are those who can bridge that gap, who can work with design researchers and design strategists really well, and values the research and knows what to do with it, knows really how to create value from it, right? And not just have it sit there in a beautiful PowerPoint deck.
Yeah.
Right. I think it's interesting because you do have this very extensive career of working at consultancies like Continuum and Smart Design. Were there design researchers there that fed into the industrial design? Like, were there separate people there that helped you do the research?
Oh yeah.
And then how did you take some of that knowledge from them?
So yeah, to answer your first question, there's a lot of them because, and actually at Continuum they called themselves. There was both design strategists and design envisioners. I'm not entirely sure what the difference was, but I think, if I recall, the envisioner was meant to bridge that divide. But I don't really. Sorry, guys. I never really got it.
So to bridge the divide, to then bridge the divide for the designer, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So it definitely exists, and the reason why those teams are so massive at these companies is because that part of the business is what sells most of the money. And that's been the way of the game for I don't know how long. Like at least a decade or two.
Yeah.
Right.
It's not just the classic industrial designer Raymond Loewy stuff.
Yeah.
And so with the whole design thinking movement, in the past few decades, that's what happened. And so the industrial design teams, from my experience, didn't really get as much time to create amazing design as much time as that was given to the researchers and strategists to find the insights and the opportunities.
Yeah.
And so, my concern going through that was that, industrial design teams are becoming commoditized, right? Or almost becoming, unfortunately, similar to how the model shop, the model makers have become.
Whoa, that's
And
interesting.
Yeah, and I love model makers. I mean, there's no replacing it, right?
Yeah.
However, that's not what sells the most money with these, with your industry stalwarts like a Smart or a Continuum or a Frog or an
Right.
IDEO. That level of firm is selling the strategy. They're not the making part, the design and make. They offer it. Obviously, it's part of their heritage, but
Right.
but it's at the tail end.
Yeah, I mean, when you talk about it that way, it does make sense. Like when I think about Frog or Smart Design, I don't think of a certain aesthetic or anything. I just think of, hey, they've done the research, and they have the talent and the skill set to really just execute and create great design around that research, great functional design. But this is something that James and I have talked about. I'm pretty sure previously on the podcast and certainly in real life, but there's this idea about design research that maybe design research helps improve a product or helps figure out the functionality or incrementally push the product forward. But when it comes to actual innovation and thinking beyond what humans are capable of, like I don't think, correct me if I'm wrong, or I want to hear you guys' thoughts, but I don't think research is how we get to the moon. I don't think anyone's like thinking like going around doing surveys like, hey, where would you like to go? Texas, the moon? Like, it's no one's going to say I want to go to the moon per se.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously there's a lot of research to get to the moon, but like
yeah,
the vision.
It almost seems like innovation comes out of like a singular obsession. And whereas research, is about that improvement, like
Stepping stones.
Yeah, what should we be focused on in this design, in this iteration?
Yeah, so those are great points. I think you're right. It is like innovation comes out of an obsession. I mean, what is the cliche saying, right? Necessity, right? Is the mother of everything.
Yeah.
Is what I like to say.
Yeah.
And I think with within these contexts of design firms, a lot of the research, the hope is, of course, we want to create innovation, but also the other driver is the client and mitigating risk and crafting a story that makes them feel comfortable moving forward and investing more money.
Yeah.
Right. And that's a lot of what is sold.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
And I think real innovation, you can't leave out the part of iteration and of experimentation and true curiosity.
Yeah.
Right. And I think that was kind of, in my opinion, the unfortunate miss on a lot of these firms, is because there was so the hype was all around the research and the design thinking methodologies, and you get so wrapped up in it. It's almost like so almost too cerebral, whereas you're missing just the most basic playfulness that is needed and curiosity, right? And just like playing with something and saying, hey, what if? And not having necessarily a strategy to it. And that's, what do you call it? Is the gut, right? That's like intuition.
Right.
Yeah.
And what I realized, and I think a lot of what Touchy Feely came from, was a designer's approach to strategy.
Yeah.
Because what I hated this idea of like, I'm not strategic because I'm not a design strategist. But then I realized, no, I'm a strategic designer. The designer is my denominator. Strategy is my numerator, right? And that's how I was trying to bridge the gap. And I just lost my train of thought.
No, it's fine. No, I was
had a
definitely
really good point.
I definitely feel what you're saying. I mean, I even think to your chair design that we talked about last episode, where you have this bent tube chair and then you put a bunch of hangers on it, like clothes hangers.
Yeah.
And there's no research. You're not going to go and research and poll a bunch of people, and people aren't going to say, oh yeah, I want a chair that has clothes hangers on it.
Yeah.
Right.
It's just something that you had this intuition about. It's this vision. It's this fun thing.
That's what it was. Okay, thank you for reminding me. Is this idea that, okay, I realized that intuition has a strategy. It's just that it's like so compacted into a moment.
Right.
And if you take the time to unpack it, you realize, oh wow, yeah, there is a reason why I felt that way. Again, it comes down to feeling.
Yeah.
Right? And that's what a lot of the research and the strategy missed, was this idea of designing to feeling.
Right. Yeah, and I think it's something that a client, an established firm, they might be afraid to do things like that because it does seem to, you're the wild card.
Yeah.
You like that would scare potentially a client.
Of course, yeah. The client is middle management.
Yeah.
These massive companies
Yeah.
who have, like their families at home that need to be fed in middle America, and then, they have the nice car and the suburbs. Like risk is not a thing that they're into.
They don't want to make a gut decision on feelings.
Yeah.
They want to see numbers.
Yeah.
I mean, they're not like our types who don't have families. We're in like, the coastal cities that are like, what do we have to lose?
Right.
So we're all about risk and trying stuff.
Yeah.
And so they're working within their systems, right, of the companies that pay them to see through like the business goals.
So I think then the question is how do you take this intuition, this this feeling of delight that really gives design a little bit more life, and how do you, I don't know, package that for a client? Because I mean that's the trick, right? Like you want to create an innovative design, and you want to have your vision transferred to the client, and not just be this rigid. I did the research. Here's the final like block of aluminum.
Yeah, it seems like the thing that people like, your Philippe Starks have figured out.
Yeah,
it's like Philippe Stark doesn't. I don't think he ever probably comes to any meeting saying like, and we did the research. And
I mean, I'm sure that he has people
says, I think he's just like, he comes up with a narrative around this design that,
and some would argue that that's not really human-centered design.
Right.
But what he has is the ability to be a household name.
Right.
And so he's not really a human-centered designer.
Right.
He's like a fashion designer, more or less.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, and to that point though, like, should we all be human-centered designers? I mean, it seems like an obvious answer, yes, but I don't know. I mean, do we want to lose that like vision, that playful? I mean, a human-centered designer is not going to make a chair out of clothes hangers. Like, that's not a human-centered design. It's just like a crazy vision that you had.
That's right.
And it turned out awesome.
That's a great point.
Yeah. But I think there's a certain level of like with somebody like Philippe Stark or any of the star designers, there's a certain level of like surprise and aspiration and something unexpected. And I think that, it kind of, I don't know, it makes, I feel like it makes people wonder like what is possible, what is possible. Like if this is a lemon juicer, and maybe not very good one, but if this is a lemon juicer, then what else is possible? Like, what are we capable of in terms of like abstraction or, whatever, to surprise and delight?
That's a great example, the lemon juicer, because that completely goes against this idea of, the principle of, what's his name? Jesus.
Dieter Rams?
Dieter Rams, thank
you.
Of, good design is no design at all, right?
Right.
It's just like hides in the background. If we're talking about theater, that lemon juicer is a prop that is competing with the lead.
Right.
The lead of the show.
Or is it a supporting character?
Well,
yeah, I mean,
it's kind of an interesting point because, there are props in plays that do hold weight in the play.
Right.
You think about like, I don't know, like Hamlet in the Skull. Is that a thing?
Yeah.
Well, I think that's this kind of design is more like artistic, stuff that belongs in museums, on pedestals.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's bridging that gap, right? And this is a whole other rabbit hole we can go down, which is
Right.
like art versus design.
Right.
I don't think we have the time for that.
Yeah.
But I do think there is a place for it, right?
Yeah.
And to your point, Nick, I think we can't lose that as designers. We can't lose that playfulness, that curiosity, right?
Yeah.
Even within a design thinking led, brand name firm.
Yeah.
We can't. We have to fight for that, and so maybe the pendulum will swing the other way.
So, given the fact that you've kind of just started up or rebranded yourself as Joey Zeledón Studio,
Mm-hmm.
And with this sort of research topic in mind, how do you see yourself sort of taking these ideas around research and implementing them into your studio?
Yeah. That's a great question. And actually, I've had to really come to terms with, putting together my own studio, like my own true beliefs about design. And it's really hard, right? Because I worked at such intensive human-centered design-led companies that I needed to look at things like that hanger chair and say, why did I create that? Why do I love creating things like that?
Yeah.
And it is the pendulum swinging the other way. But I also want to continue designing for people.
Mm-hmm.
So it's this reformation or kind of recombining or readjusting the ratio of that, right? Because I think I've had to adapt in those other contexts of the client's need and risk mitigation, which I can't lose, right? We need to be able to like rationalize things.
Yeah.
But magic and play is so important, and so I think for my studio, it's going to go a little lighter on the research.
I mean, I'm excited about that.
It's like research, just enough of what you need, and then what you can do with it.
Oh, that sounds good.
Because that's what matters most to me, right?
That sounds good.
It's like what comes out of the research.
Yeah.
Well, Joey, again, we want to thank you. I do maybe one last question, like what are you excited about in the future for your career, or maybe just in design in general, life in general?
Yeah, I think just experimentation. I mean, the age we live in now, there's so much possibility. There's so many tools for us to use. I mean, doing a podcast like this, or the social media communities and experimentation there, and just trying stuff out, right? I mean, it completely allows the maker's side of design innovation.
I know we're running a little bit long, but I even want to say, like, you've been experimenting with ambidextrous sketching, which is insane.
Well, it's did
insane.
It start with the non-dominant hand sketching?
Oh, yeah,
and
we
then,
didn't even get to that.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a whole other
accident.
story.
Yeah, there's my finger for those at home.
Oh.
So it's still kind of swollen. But
just to briefly summarize, you had cut your finger, cut a tendon, weren't able to sketch with your dominant hand, had to learn to sketch with your non-dominant hand, and now that you're both healed up, both your hands are healed up, you now can sketch ambidextrous.
Yeah.
Which is crazy. Go check out the videos on Joey's Instagram if you haven't.
Oh yeah, here we go.
Yeah, it was a fun experiment. I just wanted to keep
I love it.
Yeah.
Keep the momentum on this.
I mean, this is the kind of thing that, for myself, this kind of experimentation that keeps me fueled.
Yeah, it's just like, I don't know, it's just a fun discovery.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so with this one, I'm, it's obviously all mirroring. So I have yet to like try the
two different things at two.
Or like both hands doing two different things with trying to create one sketch. Which I know there's people on Instagram who do that. So I'm still working my way to that point.
Wow. Well, Joey, thank you so much again for being on the podcast and
absolutely
and giving us your time. Where can people find you online? And
my new website, joeyzeledon.com, and on Instagram at joey.zeledon, as well as Behance.
Oh yeah,
I don't remember that URL.
I can tell you right now.
Okay,
let's see.
It's probably Behance
/Joey Zeledon.
There you go.
And we'll link to everything as well. But
Cool.
yeah, of course. Thanks for listening, you guys. And if you have thoughts or discussions as well, feel free to comment in the Discord.
Yeah.
Like, subscribe on iTunes, YouTube, Spotify, all the platforms.
Yeah, it helps us out if you guys, like stuff, if you comment on stuff.
For sure.
But yeah.
What else? Oh, intro and outro by the amazing KYOSHY the Kid.
Oh, yeah.
And yeah, thanks again, Joey.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah.
And as always, I'm at Nick P. Baker.
I'm at iDrawing Receipts.
I'm Joey Zeledón.
Peace out.
Later.
And then they would do this kind of interesting dance where this is where they would hold on and they would kind of do this like shuffle with their feet and do turn around,
Right.
and then